Have you ever had neighbors treat your property like their personal dumping ground? Because that's exactly what the HOA in my neighborhood decided to do last winter. Every time it snowed, their snowplows pushed all the snow onto my land. At first I thought it was just an accident, but after a few weeks, it became clear it wasn't an accident at all. And by the end of winter, that snow they dumped on my property turned into something they definitely didn't expect. A wall of snow that blocked their entire street. I live on the edge of a quiet suburban area just outside town. My house sits on a large piece of land next to a road that leads into a private HOA neighborhood. When the developers built the community a few years ago, they decided to place their main entrance right next to my property line. At the time, it didn't seem like a big deal. The road was public and everyone got along fine. For the first couple of years, the HOA residents were friendly. But things changed when the HOA elected a new president. Her name was Linda. But like many HOA stories, everyone quickly started calling her Karen. Karen had a very strong opinion about how the neighborhood should operate. She believed the HOA should control everything: parking, street usage, noise levels, even areas that weren't technically inside the HOA boundaries, including my property. The first snowfall of the winter came in early December. It was a heavy storm that covered the entire area overnight. The HOA hired a snow removal company to clear their streets. You see, while the HOA road ran next to my property, a small portion of the street actually crossed my land before connecting to the main road. Most residents didn't realize that, but according to the property maps, that section of pavement belonged to me. So I called a contractor, and with a few hours of work, we used the snow already sitting on my property to create something very simple: a massive snow wall, right across the section of road that sat on my land. The result was immediate. Cars leaving the HOA neighborhood reached the end of their street, and suddenly faced a giant wall of snow. They couldn't drive around it, they couldn't drive through it, and the plow trucks couldn't push it aside without crossing onto my property. Within an hour, Karen showed up at my door. She was furious. She demanded that I remove the snow immediately. According to her, I was blocking the neighborhood's access road. That's when I calmly explained something she hadn't expected. The section of road where the snow wall stood was on my property. Karen argued that the HOA had been using the road for years. I agreed, but I also reminded her of something important. For the entire winter, the HOA had been dumping snow onto my land without permission. So technically they had created the wall themselves. The HOA board called an emergency meeting that evening. Residents were frustrated, not with me, but with the HOA leadership, because they had ignored the problem all winter. By the end of the meeting, the board made a decision. The HOA snow removal company would stop dumping snow on my land immediately. They would also bring in equipment to remove the snow piles they had already created once that agreement was signed. I allowed the contractor to open a path through the snow wall. Within a few hours, traffic was moving again. The road was clear, and the giant piles of snow were slowly hauled away. Karen didn't say much after that. In fact, a few months later, the HOA elected a new president. Apparently the residents had grown tired of unnecessary conflicts. But the lesson from that winter was simple. If you keep dumping your problems onto someone else's property, don't be surprised when they eventually pile up. Sometimes